Hi everyone, Blake here. Thank you so much for watching another video with the Fendig Theatre Experience. Now, I know you've heard a lot of me talking to you, but today I'm going to introduce you to someone who is very important and shapes the experience of my love for theater, David Sabella. So, say hi, David.
Hi, everybody.
So David is my current voice teacher, and I met David when I was in high school at a summer program in Tampa, Florida called the Broadway Theater Project. And at the Broadway Theater Project, David would teach voice lessons to 50 to 60 kids at a time. And when I eventually moved to New York City, I knew I wanted to extend my learning with David. And so I trained with him virtually through voice lessons. And since David has an interesting story about his experience in theater, I thought that you guys would love to meet him. So, David, let's see. What do you currently do in the theater industry now in terms of teaching your voice lessons?
Hi. Well, thanks for having me. Um, what do I do now in terms of teaching? Everything now is online, of course, because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my keyboard. You can see right here. So I'm sitting where I sit for hours a day. It's one-on-one voice lessons, hour long or 45-minute long or 30 minutes long, etc., depending on, what the student's needs are. And, that's right now, that's what I do because there's no theater happening to go sing somewhere. So that's what I do is online, usually via Zoom, but sometimes with an add-on, like the Clean Feed add-on, or we'll do some other synchronous technologies like Jam Kazam or something where it's one-on-one. That really depends on what kind of technology the other person has as well. But teaching voice is basically what I do when I'm not raising my two kids.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of shift a moment to talk a little bit about the book that you've just had published.
Oh, yeah. I forgot
Um,
about that. Totally
well,
forgot about that.
it's an aspect of theater that the kids have not even heard of about before, and that's cabaret performance. So if you
Right.
would like to share with us what cabaret performance is
Sure.
and why it's so important to you in terms of what you do for your
Sure.
career.
So this is the book So You Want to Sing Cabaret. It's very thick. Don't be intimidated. You're not supposed to read the whole thing. It's a chapter by chapter. You bounce around in the chapters as your interest dictates. Cabaret is the art of small venue solo performance. So every Broadway star, when they're in a show, they'll also put up a little nightclub act or a cabaret show where it's just them with a band or even sometimes just a piano. And they'll sing the music that they want to sing, not the music that's in the show, not the stuff they have to sing, not the stuff that they have to learn to get a job, but what do they want to say? Sometimes they're political statements, sometimes they're romantic statements, sometimes they're comic statements, just whatever or sometimes they're all three, right? And can be anything else you want. But it's you and a pianist and an audience in a small venue, meaning, 50 people, maybe at most 150 people. But cabaret rooms are really small. There could be 10 or 20 people there. That's, that's not abnormal. That's normal, Now, the art of how to communicate with someone when you're that close to them, when they're 5 feet away from you, it's different than when you're in a show and you're being this character and you're portraying someone else in cabaret and in auditions too, which is why this is a really important skill set. You have to communicate to the people who are right in front of you and reveal a little bit of yourself. And so cabaret kind of really teaches you how to do that. It's nerve-wracking. It's not easy. Every young child who dreams about being a performer probably holds a hairbrush in their hand in front of a mirror and dreams about being someone else, somewhere else, in another situation and singing something wildly fantastic, right? And that's what happens when you're in a play. You get to be that someone else, somewhere else, singing something else. But in cabaret, you're not someone else, you're you. You're not anywhere else except where you are, and you have to tell the truth. So it's really different for performers to be able to have that experience.
But thank you for explaining to us kind of what cabaret is.
Yeah.
I really enjoy the fact that cabaret is really an opportunity for you as the performer to show your most true, authentic self and connect
Yes.
with others.
Yes.
And it's a hard thing to do. It's not easy, especially when it's just you and your piano,
Right.
your pianist, and the audience.
It's really a hard thing to do. And let's face it, like I said, most people who want to get into this career want to be someone else. Like their whole goal is to like get me out of this place where I am and let me be the person I dream of being. And a small venue performance is really about let me sit in who I am and tell you my story, because we're all going to identify with that because we're all human. So it's a really different aspect of performance.
So, like, going back to, like, holding the hairbrush and being
Yeah.
completely different than yourself, what
Yeah.
was it for you when you were a kid
Yes.
that you listened and you saw that you were like, I want to do this. I want to be involved in this world.
Well,
Do you have, like, a specific thing?
as you know, my brother, Ernie Sabella, is a Broadway performer. He's several years my senior, almost 20 years my senior. So he was out and about and doing his career as I was, 5 and 6 and 7, and my mother was also a singer, a big band singer. And so I always had that direction. You'd look up and I would look up and see someone singing in my family. So it was never a, what are you doing, uncomfortable, like, why are you singing? It was like, oh, we sing. This is what my family does. We sing. And one of my first Broadway shows that I saw, my brother was in. It was the Robert Bridegroom that he was in on Broadway. And I was 11, 10, maybe 9, something like that.
I didn't realize he was 20 years your senior.
He's 16. Totally, he's 16 years, but yeah, he is.
Yeah, but much older. So, like, from
He's
a very
much
young
older.
age, you were looking up to him.
Yeah,
Right from the very beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, and my mother would sing along to Judy Garland albums, and so of course I sang along to everything on the radio with that hairbrush, with probably my mother's robe or some sort of towel to like pretend to have a costume or a cape or something, singing in front of the stereo, which was hidden inside an armoire. But we were Italian, so everything was hidden in an armoire, So I'm just singing along to like Judy Garland and the Supremes and Barbra Streisand and Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett and all of that ilk,
Mm-hmm.
And it was always to get there. It was always like, I'm dreaming about getting there, right? And everybody needs that. You need that dream building. You need that. That's what propels us forward to become who we want to become, right? Sometimes we make it, sometimes we don't. But that you got to have that thought about what do you want to become and that goal and that drive. So that was it for me. My brother was a very, very big influence on me. Then I remember he took me to see Sweeney Todd on Broadway, the original Sweeney Todd. And I, again, was a very sort of young child. Maybe I was 10. Maybe, I forget. Well, we can find out when Sweeney Todd opened because that's how old I was, right? So, as you know, in Sweeney Todd, the siren hits at the very beginning of the show. And when that siren whistle went off, I jumped out of my seat. I was like, what? Because it never dawned on me that could happen in theater. Like, theater was like Pretty Little Music. And this story unfolded of Sweeney Todd, this bloody, gory, macabre story of this demon barber of Fleet Street who slit people's throats and then she stuffed them into pies and sold them. It was like, what is going on? It was crazy. But the music was also totally captivating. So I was kind of hooked. I was like, okay, that's it for me.
I was hooked to Sweeney Todd when I was 10 too.
Yeah.
So for my listeners and watchers who are unfamiliar with Sweeney Todd, Hal Prince, who we talked about in our directing episode, and Stephen Sondheim, who we talked about in our composer and lyricist episode, were involved in that production. And I didn't bring it up originally before because I didn't want parents sending me mad emails, but David was 10. I was 10 when we discovered the show. I would highly recommend you.
Right.
Yeah, you.
In the end,
if you
does win out. Yeah.
If you listen on YouTube to the music, I would highly recommend that be the first thing that you do. There is a movie of Sweeney Todd, but I would not recommend you watch that by yourself unless you have permission.
No, and not
with your
Johnny
parents.
Depp. Let's just agree. Not Johnny Depp and not Helena Bonham Carter. No, Angela Lansbury and Len Cariou. Yes. That's
and guys, if you don't know who Angela Lansbury is, she was the voice behind Mrs. Potts in Beauty and the Beast. And for their parents, they will know her from a very popular television show called Murder, She Wrote.
Right.
While
we're on the subject of Disney,
yeah.
I should say that my brother, who we were speaking about, is the voice
Ernie.
of Pumbaa in The Lion King.
Guys,
all the movies.
It's true.
Yeah. All the
Ernie
toys,
Sabella. He's the actual voice that you've been listening to in all Lion King.
Hakuna Matata. Right? I can do it too.
No, the moment
It's
David
genetic.
first told me that, my mind was completely blown. Because, who doesn't love Pumbaa in any shape or form? But anyway, let's talk more about you, because there is a moment in your career when you do kind of get to that dream that you were speaking of when you were a kid looking up to your brother. David, you were the original Mary Sunshine in the revival production of Chicago, which was currently still running on Broadway before the pandemic started. So it's the longest running American musical to date, which is a very huge record. And David was in the very forefront of the beginning of that. So David, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your experience in Chicago.
Sure. Well, first off, to deal with the character and the name, because you say, I was the first Mary Sunshine. And of course, Mary is a female character. And the convention in the show is that we're supposed to believe that this character is female until the end of the show, when the character is revealed actually to be male. And it's kind of a plot twist. All the kids watching will be way too young to remember, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit, right? But it was kind of that kind of turn. Like, if you believe, what's the line? Things are not always what they appear to be, right? He's trying to get Roxy Hart acquitted of murder. So although it looks like she's a murderer, you can't always believe what you see. And then he rips the costume off of this beloved reporter, Mary Sunshine, and I'm a guy. So it's a little plot twist that's very interesting. That was not in the movie. Christine.
Yeah, it was not in the movie.
Right.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with Chicago, the role that David played in Chicago was a role called Mary Sunshine. And Mary Sunshine is a reporter, and the character is purposefully dressed in drag. And the plot twist at the end basically is that at the climax of the show, it's revealed that Mary Sunshine is in fact a man.
Right. And so therefore, Roxy could not possibly have killed him.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Right. So it's like a huge and what kind of leads into that is your world as a countertenor. So would you explain to us what a countertenor is?
Well,
and,
thanks for asking.
Yeah, of course. Last week we actually had a little video about voice parts. So they all know about tenors, baritones, basses, altos, and sopranos, but they don't know anything about countertenors because I knew I was going to be talking to you.
Right. So in the male voice, the voice parts are, basso profundo, bass, then baritone, then tenor, then countertenor, and then alto and soprano above that. So countertenor is the highest male voice, and so high that it can sound no longer male, that it can sound like an alto. Now, when we sing low, of course, we dip into that low part of our voice that does sound male, in the same way that altos dip into that low chest voice, and they can sound male, right? So it's a sort of very non-binary voice function, right?
Mm-hmm.
Countertenors sing mostly opera and classical music, which I sang for many, many years on what we would call an elite level. They sing roles written by Handel and Mozart, Bach, Baroque style roles. There's only two countertenor roles. Well, there's two shows that require countertenors on Broadway, and 3 roles within those 2 shows. Both of them are written by John Kander. One of them was Mary Sunshine, and the other show was The Visit, in which he wrote 2 countertenor roles, Jacob and Louis. Jacob Perch and Louis Chicken, something like that, I think it's. Or the other way, Louis Perch and Jacob Chicken, the other way around. And one of those roles, The Visit, was actually written for me, from my association with John in Chicago. So I feel particularly good about that. Like I inspired this amazing writer to
someone wrote something for you. Like, of course,
right.
That's awesome.
Forever, there's this role in this show. So we sound very much like a soprano. What can I say? A soprano.
Her name's Mary Sunshine.
When I was a tiny tot of maybe 2 or 3, I can still remember what my mother said to me.
Yeah, so, like, my best example I would give for the kids that are watching is when I would help teach the voice parts with our music director, I would usually be able to sing the alto part for the girls. So, like, you would hear me be like, that would be an example of someone with countertenor notes.
Right.
I'm not trained as a countertenor. David is the countertenor.
We are exceedingly rare. We're very, very rare voice parts. So in 1995, two things happened to me in 1995 that I won the Luciano Pavarotti International Voice Competition as a countertenor, which was kind of historic, and Chicago debuted at City Center, which was also historic. But in that year also, there's a book, like a phone book, of every professional singer in the world, like classical singer, and who their management is, like how to reach them professionally. And there are, as you can imagine, tens of thousands of sopranos and altos and tenors and basses. And in the 1995 edition of Musical America, there were 35 countertenors in the world. That's it. And about 5 of us kind of got most of the work that there was to be had, right? There's, but there were 35 in the world listed. So it's very, very rare that someone can do that. And if you can do that, and I'll say this to all of the young boys and teachers there, if you have a male student who has that ability, then great. Use it. It's very rare. It's exceedingly fantastic, and they could probably make a very good living. So
yeah, probably for sure. David, what's the one performance that just completely defines your whole experience of being a performer, being involved in this world, that you hold most treasured to your heart, you look back the most fondly? Anything specifically like that? Does something come to your mind?
Yeah, I mean, immediately what comes to my mind is the very first performance for an audience of Chicago at City Center Encores. Because Chicago was designed to be a weekend set of performances, 5 performances at City Center Encore, and that was it. So we got together to rehearse for about 2 weeks and then put up this concert version of the show And that was it. Why, no one ever thought it would go anywhere further. So, and no one really knew how it would even be received. So, we're just plodding along and doing our stuff. And hey, it's a great show, and how nice to resurrect this musical that hasn't been done in 30 years, blah, blah, blah. And opening night, the end of the orchestra, the overture, goes right into all that jazz. Now, I'm up in my dressing room, which is 3 floors up. And I don't come on for 40 minutes into the play. So I'm just sitting in my dressing room. And I'm finishing getting into costume and putting on my shoes. And at the end of all that jazz, and I'm listening to it over my monitor, which is a speaker in every dressing room. And at the end of all that jazz, the speaker breaks. The speaker goes completely static, like a short in the wire. Like, oh, what's happening? What happened? But, I'm thinking I'm 40 minutes away from going downstairs, so I don't have to rush. I don't have to worry. So I finish just putting on my stuff and getting ready to go downstairs. And it's still crackling, static, broken. And I think now, I better go tell somebody that this speaker broke, because obviously that's a problem, right? And I walk down 3 flights of stairs, and I get to the stage level. Every monitor, by the way, is having the same problem as I walk down the stairs. I'm like, what the hell happened? So it's a good 5 or 6 minutes before I get to the stage to go up to the stage manager to say, do you know all the monitors are broken? And I realize then, and I walk up to Joel Gray, EGOT winner Joel Gray, who's watching from the wings, and I notice, and he looks at me with a big smile, and I realize the monitors didn't break. They were overloaded by uproarious applause and people stomping, standing up for the first number, for all that jazz. Just a standing ovation, stomping on the floor, screaming. And I turned to Joel and I went, what show are they seeing? Like, literally, what's happening? Right? And every number after that, it literally got bigger and bigger and bigger. My entrance, I have a big high note at the top of my entrance. I got entrance applause. Like, what? It was kind of shocking, and it's forever etched in my mind. That is the highest pinnacle of any kind of reaction or any project I've been in that reached that level of zeitgeist, of being on the popular pulse,
I'm so happy that you've gotten to experience that. Chicago really is a staple of kind of the American experience in a way.
Yeah.
And when it originally premiered, it was well received, but it wasn't its time. And
Right.
So the fact that you got to be a part of that piece when it was the perfect time.
It ran for 2 years. Originally, it ran for 2 years.
Yeah.
And it was good. It was well received.
Yeah.
It was okay. But it was ahead of its time. It was, for the parents listening, originally it came off as like a comment on Watergate when it happened in the 70s. And it came off like a pastiche, like, oh, this could never happen.
And when it was in 1995 with the O.J.
It was like
Simpson
a documentary.
trial.
Yeah. It was like, oh, this has already happened. So it really read differently. Time caught up to it. And everything that happens in the news, people walk into the theater with that in mind, and then they see that unfolding on
and they
stage.
see it in a very interesting, unique way.
Yeah.
And what's so great about the show is it's so it's minimal.
That's why they see whatever's going on in the news, they bring it into the theater.
And like everything that goes in their head translates to these simple numbers where everyone's wearing black.
Right.
And there isn't huge spectacle to look at because it's all in your head because you're watching a story that's so relevant.
Right. Right.
Yeah, thank you for telling me that story. I've never heard that story before.
Yeah,
and I've gotten to work with you a lot, so it's been really cool to hear that story. I'm like, oh my gosh!
Yeah.
So to wrap it up, David, what is the first main piece of advice that you could give to a young actress or actor or undecided about pursuing a life in the world of theater, whether that be performance-based or technical backstage theater-based or writing or any type of thing? What would be your main piece of advice for those young artists?
Well, there's so much, but I think it all boils down to, in one line, to thine own self be true. One of my very best teachers, voice teachers, said to me once, because I was a tenor, but I was thinking about being a countertenor, and at that time in the early 90s, it was like, what you want to what? You know, it was not the thing that it is today, right?
It's a little scandalous.
Yeah. And so, but she said to me, she said, okay, you know what? You, and this is my advice for everybody, you are the single greatest living authority on your talent. Nobody else knows your talent like you do. Your teachers can facilitate your nurturing your talent, but I don't know your talent better than you do. So you have to be true to yourself. And that has always stayed with me. You are the single greatest living authority on your talent. So no matter what anybody else says, if you know otherwise, to thine own self be true.
Wow. Thank you so much, David. I cannot wait for kids to see this. This is really
I thought you were going to say our next lesson.
Well, we have a lesson tomorrow. We're working tomorrow.
Okay.
But kids with Fendig, thank you so much for watching this interview. Have a great day.